So we've known this since last August that everybody is most likely going to get COVID. Given Delta, this is Andy Slavitt, Joe Biden's former director of COVID response, said given Delta's contagiousness and the fitness of future mutations in order to beat it, this means SARS-CoV-2 will be contagious enough that everyone will get infected with the virus, get the virus. So we've known this since last August. We've been telling everybody, and we've been called anti-vax for repeating this information because nobody wants to say it. Well, now guess who now is saying it? Well, now Fauci's now saying it. So we were on it last summer. It only took almost half a year for Fauci to catch up to us. So that's usually how it goes. Fauci is now saying the virus may infect most people. That's what Fauci's now saying. Guess who else is saying it? The FDA director. It's hard to process what's actually happening right now, which is most people are going to get COVID. So this idea that the vaccine stopped you from getting COVID was always a lie. It was never the science. And the fact that these are going to stop you from transmitting the virus has always been a lie. It's always the best you could get was the FDA said they hoped it stopped transmission. But most people are going to get it. Most people are going to get it. So a World Health Organization official on Tuesday predicted that the Omicron variant will have infected more than half of the population in Europe region in the next 6 to 8 weeks. So now tell me why we need vaccine mandates again. The virus burns right through your vaccine and infects half of Europe in 6 to 8 weeks. Why do you need a mandate again? Why do you need to make someone else get a medical? There's no reason for it. People will still say things. It's only circular logic. Yeah, but it'll slow the spread. You're going to get it. What the fuck do you care who you get it from?
I just don't want to clog up the hospitals and make them unprofitable.
I wouldn't want to do that. Half the population in Europe is going to get COVID in the next 6 to 8 weeks. That's from the goddamn Washington Post. So now they're finally catching up to the Jimmy Dore show. And believe me, YouTube has come at us in the most disingenuous ways. Our reporting was always on point, and they won't even tell us what we said wrong because they're making it up. Everything we've said has always been factual about COVID. And we've been months and months ahead of fucking Fauci and the mainstream news, that's for sure. So there it is. It's going to rip through Europe. Half of freaking Europe's going to get COVID in the next 6 to 8 weeks. Mandates. Here's what Fauci actually said. Here he is.
Was referring to when she said most of us will ultimately get Omicron is not that most of us were ultimately going to get sick with Omicron. Remember, she was talking about in the data that we all showed about the extraordinary effect and dichotomy between people who get Omicron, who get vaccinated and boosted, how well they are protected against hospitalization and death. And even with Omicron, it appears, as the data that Dr. Walensky just showed today from the Kaiser Permanente study, that it is going to be a less severe, particularly in those who are vaccinated and boosted. So if we're going to look ahead at what happens when this peaks and it ultimately goes down, as I've said on previous pressers here from the White House, that we're not going to eradicate this. We've only done that with smallpox. We're not going to eliminate that.
We're not going to eradicate COVID like we did with smallpox. 2 years in, he's saying this. 2 effing years in, he's saying this. Why didn't you say that at the beginning? They knew it then. They knew it then, Kurt. He knew it then. This isn't new information to these people.
Well, that's why you can't do your own research, because it's easier. The way this works is it's not that hard to find out what's going on, because you can just read the sources they tell you to read. they don't want you to read anything. Just hear Stephen Colbert musical number.
That's right.
Watch Disney Plus, the documentary about the great Dr. Science. And that's all you need. Just feels. Have some feels.
So I'm going to play this again, just in case the top of your head hasn't blown off yet.
Not only that we're not going to eradicate this. We've only done that with smallpox. We're not.
He just says it flippantly, like, hey, we're not going to eradicate. Hey, everybody knows that we're not going to eradicate this. This isn't like smallpox. Well, that's what every asshole on fucking Twitter has been saying for 2 straight years.
And MSNBC and CNN.
And CNN and MSNBC and the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times and the Washington Post. Everybody's saying, well, we got to get vaccinated so we can eradicate this. Now he's finally saying we're not going to eradicate this, which is what we've been saying at this show since the minute we looked into it. 2 years in, he's finally saying this now because the evidence is clear. Now, after living through this for 2 years and going through lockdowns and mass vaccinations and mask wearing and social distancing, it is clear that this isn't going away. And their narrative is falling apart that vaccines will make it go away. Now they can't keep lying. Half of fucking Europe is going to be infected in the next 6 to 8 weeks. So they can't keep lying. So now they got to switch the narrative. And the narrative is, oh, no, we're never going to eradicate. That's what we haven't been saying all along, right? They haven't been saying that all along. Now they're switching. We've been telling you that since we've looked into it. The virus is never going away. And that most people are going to get it. And if you live long enough, you're going to get it. So here it is. I'll play it one more time.
The White House, that we're not going to eradicate this. We've only done that with smallpox. We're not going to eliminate that. That only happens with massive vaccination programs like we did with measles and with vaccines.
Well, with vaccines that work and make it go,
with vaccines that make the measles go away. What the fuck? He's acting like they've been saying this all along. Have they been saying this all along?
No.
Now he's admitting, like, it's not going to be like the measles or smallpox. It's not like that. What is it like? It's like, this thing that doesn't keep you from getting it or transmitting it. And it's, it makes you not die.
The numbers of people that targeted, absolutely, you should, over a certain age, you absolutely should get it.
Yeah.
It's almost 100% for all the targeted groups that should be getting it.
Doc was referring to when she said most of us will ultimately get Omicron is not that most of us were ultimately going to get sick with Omicron. Remember, she was talking about in the data that we all showed about the extraordinary effect and dichotomy between people who get Omicron, who get vaccinated and boosted, how well they are protected against hospitalization and death. And even with Omicron, it appears, as the data that Dr. Walensky just showed today from the Kaiser Permanente study, that it is going to be a less severe, particularly in those who are vaccinated and boosted. So if we're going to look ahead at what happens when this peaks and it ultimately goes down, as I've said on previous pressers here from the White House, that we're not going to eradicate this. We've only done that with smallpox. We're not going to eliminate that. That only happens with massive vaccination programs like we did with measles and with vaccines, but we ultimately will control it.
What?
And if you control it in a way, it's at such a low.
So now you see the goalposts. So we're not going to eradicate it. We're not going to eliminate it. We're going to control it. What? This is crazy that he says that. And nobody, go ahead.
Do you know he also says, he goes, I'm not entirely convinced it's not a lab leak. I just think it's he's come around on the lab leak theory as well. I don't know if you know.
Well, that used to be a conspiracy theory. So Did you hear this guy? We're going to control it now. How are we going to do that?
Level, and people are vaccinated and boosted, sooner or later, as we begin to live with it, what she was referring to is that virtually everybody is going to wind up getting exposed and likely get infected. But if you're vaccinated and if you're boosted, the chances of you getting sick are very, very low. That
hasn't been the narrative for 2 years. That everybody's going to get this. That's what he just said. Everybody, he didn't say some, he didn't say most. He said everybody is likely to get infected. Everybody. That's what he said. So if they would have been, so how now can you, how can you justify a vaccine mandate if you have this information? The answer is you can't do it. You can't do it and have a strong argument, and you can't do it logically. And it just goes to show you that people like Chomsky are just as susceptible to fear and bad thinking as anybody.
Yeah, but January 6th. He did that. Fauci did that. He just blurted out January 6th.
He just blurted out January 6th at a Senate hearing. He did it.
Let's see. He was referring to.
So at a Senate, so I'm just going to show you. At a Senate hearing Tuesday, Fauci said the unvaccinated people are 20 times likelier to die, 17 times likelier to be hospitalized, and 10 times likelier to be infected than the vaccinated. Now that sounds like huge numbers. It sounds like, oh, well, 10 times greater. That's like if you had 10, you'd have 100 times. No. I'm going to show you how they're doing this. So for argument's sake, when the Gallup organization looked at the hospitalization rate of unvaccinated versus vaccinated, they came up with these numbers. Now, it doesn't matter if these are the real numbers, which I think they are, but it doesn't matter. But I'm going to show you statistics, right? Because we've talked about this on other videos. There are three kinds of lies: lies, damn lies, and statistics. So here's a statistic. 0.1% of vaccinated people are hospitalized with COVID. That's very low. That's 1 in 10,914. You know how many people who are unvaccinated end up in the hospital? 0.89%. That's also very low. 1 in 112 people who get infected with the COVID will have to go to a hospital. Not the ICU necessarily, but a hospital. So that's 0.89%. So when I put these numbers up on Twitter, people who are haters and Joe Biden supporters told me that I'm so dumb, I don't know how statistics work. I said, no, I do. These are both under 1%. So unvaccinated people and vaccinated people, according to Gallup, have less than a 1% chance of being hospitalized. They said, no, what that means is the unvaccinated are 89 times more likely to be hospitalized. Do you see how you can use that statistic to totally?
I mean, it's pretty stupid.
To totally distort the threat that you are under from COVID and hospitalization. You are 89 times more likely. That's what they were telling me on Twitter. And I'm like, you can state it that way if you want to be unbelievably inflammatory and give people the wrong idea. You could state it that way, because that would certainly be misleading. And what do you fucking think Fauci's doing here? When he says people are 20 times likelier to die, 17 times likelier to be hospitalized, 10 times likelier to be. Now, I don't doubt that these numbers are correct. I'm saying the way they're stating these stats are there for maximum scaremongering. That's what I'm saying. Just like you can say this is 89 times greater than that. I wonder what the raw data is that you can say this is 20 times, because that's less than this. You see what I'm saying? So these things could be inside of a percent difference. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, they're not giving you the numbers.
They're not giving you the numbers. That's right. They're giving you a way to look at the numbers.
But without the numbers.
Without the numbers. Give me the numbers. So at least Fauci is now telling people, and by the way, this is from the FDA. Does the vaccine reduce transmission? Most vaccines that protect from viral illnesses also reduce transmission of the virus that causes the disease by those who are vaccinated. While it is hoped
Science.
It is hoped that this will be the case. The scientific community does not yet know if the Pfizer-BioNTech COVID-19 vaccine will reduce such transmission. Now, that was from November of 2021. I checked it today. It still says the exact same thing.
Well, we won't know for...
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. We won't know for 75 years.
I guess we won't know for 75 years. So that's when the FDA said they wanted to release all the data on this. So this idea that this is new information, it's not new information. They've known this all along, and they've been lying to you all along. And they've been giving you a pro-pharma. What we know is that individuals who are vaccinated are, this is what they say. How they say it stops transmission. They say what we know is that individuals who are vaccinated are much less likely to be infected. They're less likely to get infected. Therefore, much less likely to spread the virus. That doesn't mean if you're both infected, you see this fucking smarmy way they put this? That's being misleading. Yeah, what they're saying here is technically all correct, but they're not giving you context. So is that it? And again, let me tell you what, since now Omicron is ripping through the population in Europe, half of Europe will be infected in the next 6 to 8 weeks. And Fauci and the FDA head here just said that everybody is likely to get Omicron, meaning COVID, here in the United States. Everyone. So now why do you need someone else to get vaccinated to protect you? You're going to get it likely, and everyone likely, said Fauci. And then when you get it, remember, these are the symptoms.
Top 5 Zoe reported symptoms. So this is the early London data, right? Most common, runny nose. Second most common, headache. Third most common, fatigue. Sometimes the fatigue was bad, sometimes it was mild. Fourth most common feature, sneezing. Fifth most common feature, sore throat. The implication is obvious. If you have any of these and you've had colds in the past, you're going to think it's a cold, but it may well not be. It may be a Omicron cold.
So there you go. So it's nice to see Dr. Fauci and the head of the FDA catching up to the Jimmy Dore show finally. And when they admit that likely everyone, not some, not most, likely everyone, that's what Fauci said, everyone is likely to be infected with COVID. So once you know that, now you know that vaccine mandates are bullshit and big pharma propaganda. 100%. We added a second show, January 26th in Raleigh, and we're going to be in Philadelphia on February 20th. Go to jimmydorcomedy.com for a link for all our tickets. And while you're there, become a premium member. Get access to all our premium videos.